The war room of the Dominion's fist hummed with the low predatory growl of Zapirian voices. Holographic star maps flickered above the obsidian table, casting jagged shadows across the faces of the High Command. The air smelled of ionized metal and the musk of a dozen battle-hardened warriors. General Vrax leaned forward, his four-clawed hands splayed across the table. His carapace, black as void space and etched with scars from a dozen campaigns, gleamed under the cold light. "The humans," he sneered, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Soft. Slow. Predictable." A ripple of laughter spread through the commanders. Admiral Krell, his exoskeleton still streaked with plasma burns from the Cygnus campaign, chuffed. "Their colonies are barely fortified. No orbital defenses. Their ships—" He flicked a claw, and a hologram zoomed in on a blocky human frigate. "Primitive. No shield harmonics, just metal." The Vorak ambassador shifted in his seat, his 6 eyes glowing uneasily. His species didn't have claws or carapaces, just smooth gray flesh and a voice like grinding stone. "The Council should reconsider." "There are records," Vrax snorted, a wet, dismissive sound. He reached for a small alloy plate on the table, human-made, recovered from a trade outpost. "Records?" he squeezed. The metal crumpled like parchment in his grip. "Look at this! Their strongest alloy? Pathetic!" He tossed the mangled scrap aside. It clattered against the floor, the sound mocking. The ambassador's frills twitched. The Elder Ones wrote of them, called them the storm that does not warn before it strikes. Then Krell barked a laugh. "Dust and bones!" He gestured to the star map, where a cluster of human worlds pulsed like ripe fruit. "We've scanned them. No quantum signatures, no plasma lances, just kinetic weapons." He said it like a curse. Vrax stood, his towering frame casting a shadow over the table. "Enough. The vote is unanimous." The hologram shifted, zooming in on the human border. "We strike at dawn. Wipe out their outer colonies. Let them see what real power looks like. Let them see what real power looks like." The ambassador didn't move. Outside the viewports, the Zapirian fleet stretched into the void, hundreds of ships, their shields shimmering like iridescent scales. The Dominion's fist, pride of the fleet, loomed largest of all, its spinal-mounted plasma cannon, capable of glassing a continent in a single shot, glowed faintly as it charged. Rex turned to leave, then paused. He glanced back at the ambassador. "When we return with human prisoners, you can ask them about these elder warnings yourself." The ambassador stared at the crumpled human alloy on the floor. It had bent, but it hadn't broken. Next, the ambassador unearths the truth in the Vorak archives. The bioluminescent orbs flickered like dying stars as Ambassador Krellix of the Vorak pushed open the vault door. The air smelled of ionized metal and something older, something that made the Zapirian delegation's scales itch. "These archives predate your dominion by millennia," Krellix rasped, his 4-jointed fingers brushing dust from a pedestal. The Vorak's carapace gleamed dull bronze under the sickly light. "The Elder Ones left warnings about them," General Vrax snorted, his armored tail thumping the stone floor. "Superstition. The humans haven't even mastered FTL without cryosleep." His claws clicked against the neutron star alloy scroll case, indestructible, yet marred by 3 parallel gouges. What could these fossils possibly? Krellix unsealed the case. The scroll inside unfurled with a sound like shattering glass. The holographic text shimmered, translating itself into Dominion battle cant. Fleet Admiral Joreth leaned closer, her dorsal spines flaring as she read aloud. "Beware the hairless ones. They do not war as we do. Their weapons scar even this metal." Vrax laughed. "Poetry. Look at their colonies." He gestured to the tactical hollow floating above the pedestal. "Human settlements, small and clustered like frightened herd beasts. No orbital defenses, no plasma lances. Their greatest warship carries kinetic slugs like some pre-space civilization." Krellix's mandibles quivered. Relic's mandibles quivered. "You misunderstand." The Elder Ones feared them, not for their technology. He tapped the deepest gouge in the alloy. For their rage. Admiral Joreth zoomed the hollow onto a human city. "Their architecture, it's all reinforced. Her voice tightened, as if built to withstand. Constant war, Krelix finished. He rotated the scroll, revealing a star map. This marks their home system before they achieve spaceflight. Note the debris fields. Vrax squinted. Asteroid belts. Vrax squinted. Asteroid belts. Ship graveyards. The Vorax voice dropped to a hiss. Whoosh. Humans destroyed each other with fission weapons for centuries before uniting. US! We chwes! We trailed months thing way. US the Nichwezon. One's with. They call it their great filter. Then Vrax snorted again. So they're violent to themselves. We've crushed 100 such species. He turned to leave. Enough wasting time with dead races' nightmares. Krelix barred his path. The scroll warns of their storm, not of weapons, of tactics. He played a fragment of Elder video, blurred figures in primitive armor swarming a fortress. They do not stop, they do not yield, they fight wounded, they fight dying. The Zapirian High Council shifted uncomfortably. Chancellor Zot, eldest of them, finally spoke. The Dominion needs new slave worlds, and humans are expendable. You should have listened. 1. The Archive, a vault of black basalt lit by floating bioluminescent orbs casting greenish light on ancient relics. 2. The Scroll, a metallic document floating above its case, holographic text shifting between alien scripts with 3 deep claw marks across its surface. 3. The Hologram, a tactical display showing human cities with strangely reinforced structures zooming into underground bunker networks. 4. The Elder video, grainy footage of human soldiers from pre-space flight eras charging through artillery fire without hesitation. 5. Krelix's final moment, alone in the vault, his carapace reflecting the scroll's warning as the door hisses shut behind the oblivious Zapirians. The bridge of the UESN Defiance hummed with quiet efficiency, the kind of tense silence that clung to the air before a storm. Captain Ryan Blake leaned forward in his command chair, fingers steepled under his chin as he studied the flickering sensor display. Something was wrong. "Lieutenant Hayes," he said, voice low. "Run the numbers again." Across the circular bridge, Lisa Hayes didn't look up from her tactical console. Her dark fingers danced across holographic keys, pulling up the same anomaly they'd been tracking for 6 hours. "It's not a glitch, sir. The mass readings at the edge of the Proxima Corridor don't match any known asteroid drift patterns." She tapped the screen, and a star map bloomed overhead. "Whatever's out there, it's holding position." Blake exhaled through his nose. The Defiance wasn't a new ship. Her titanium-plated hull bore the scars of 3 decades of patrols, but her sensors were top tier. If they said something was lurking in the black, it wasn't just space dust. A heavy boot clanged against the deck plating as Gunnery Chief Jake Morrison strode onto the bridge, a half-eaten protein bar in one hand. "Cap'n," he grunted, wiping crumbs from his beard. "You called?" Blake gestured to the display. "We've got ghosts at the border. Hayes thinks it might be a cloaked ship." Morrison snorted. "Cloaked? Only the Zapirians bother with that fancy crap." He squinted at the readings. "And if it is them, why the hell are they parked in the middle of nowhere?" The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the Defiance's aging power grid cycled. No bioluminescent glow, no sleek alien tech, just the steady pulse of human engineering, reliable as a hammer. Hayes suddenly stiffened. "Sir, New Geneva colony just went dark." Blake's spine straightened. "Comms failure. Negative." Her voice tightened. "Comms failure?" Raid cycled. "No beacons, no automated distress signals. It's like someone switched them off." A chill crawled down Blake's neck. New Geneva was a mining outpost, yes, but it had a planetary defense grid. Nothing fancy, just enough to scare off pirates. For it to vanish without a whisper. "Red alert," Blake ordered. The klaxons wailed to life, bathing the bridge in pulsing crimson. "Helm, set course for New Geneva. Maximum burn." The Defiance's engines roared as she pivoted, her thrusters flaring blue-white against the void. On the main view screen, the stars blurred into streaks as the ship leapt to FTL. Morrison cracked his knuckles. "If it is the lizards," he muttered, "they're about to learn why humans don't build pretty ships." He patted the bulkhead affectionately. "We build tanks." Hayes didn't smile. Her eyes stayed locked on the tactical feed. 30 seconds to drop." The bridge crew braced. No harnesses, no gravity cushions, just white-knuckled grips on consoles as the Defiance shuddered back into real space. The view screen resolved into hell. New Geneva's orbital platforms were gone. Molten debris spun lazily where comms arrays had been. The planet's surface burned in a dozen places, great plumes of smoke rising from impact craters. And hanging in high orbit, blotting out the stars, "Mother of God," Morrison breathed. A Zapirian battle fleet, 20 cruisers at least, their spined hulls glistening like obsidian knives. At their center loomed the Dominion's fist, a dreadnought so massive its shadow darkened the planet below. "General Vrax, human vessel," he hissed, mandibles clicking. "You are outmatched. Surrender and your deaths will be—" A new voice cut through, screaming over an open channel. "They are here! There!" The transmission dissolved into static. Haze paled. That was from the colony's last bunker. Blake's hands curled into fists. On the view screen, Zapirian fighters streaked toward the planet's surface, their plasma cannons glowing green. Morrison slammed a fist on his console. "Orders, Captain?" The Defiance's railguns hummed as they powered up. "What?" Blake's voice was ice. Load armor piercing. The Zapirian fleet emerged from FTL in perfect formation, their obsidian black hulls blotting out the stars. 100 warships, each larger than a human city, their curved prows glowing with the sickly green light of charged plasma cannons. At the center floated the Dominion's fist, its command spire bristling with sensor arrays, a predator surveying its prey. General Vrax's voice crackled across the comms of every human outpost in the system. "Resistance is suicide. New Geneva never stood a chance." The first plasma volley hit the orbital defense grid like a hammer striking glass. Human shields flared bright blue, then shattered. The second volley turned the grid into molten debris, raining fire onto the colony below. On the bridge of the UESN Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake's knuckles whitened around his armrest. The view screen showed New Geneva's surface, once lush farmland, now a hellscape of craters and burning settlements. Gunnery Chief Jake Morrison slammed a fist into his console. "Cowards!" The Defiance's engines roared as Blake pushed them to flank speed. "All batteries, lock onto those fighters! Hayes, plot an intercept!" A Zapirian cruiser slid into their path, its ventral cannons pulsing. The Defiance lurched as plasma fire scorched their port side. Alarms wailed. Blake gritted his teeth. "Evasive pattern! Delta! Morrison, return fire!" The Defiance's railguns thundered, tungsten slugs screaming toward the cruiser. They impacted its shields in bursts of violet light and did nothing. On the Dominion's fist, Vrax watched the display with amusement. "Pathetic. Their weapons can't even scratch our shields." His second-in-command, Commander Krell, chuckled, a sound like grinding stones. "Shall we finish them?" Vrax waved a claw. "No, let them run. I want their entire fleet to see what happens to those who defy us." Back on the Defiance, the crew watched in horror as the Zapirian fleet descended on New Geneva's capital. Plasma beams carved through skyscrapers, reducing them to slag. A mining outpost on the colony's moon vanished in a flash of green fire. Hayes' voice was hollow. "Captain, we're getting distress calls from the surface. They're executing civilians." Morrison's grip on his railgun controls tightened. "We can't just—" A new voice cut through the comms, Vrax's dripping with mockery. "Human vessel, you've seen our strength. Surrender now, and we'll make your deaths quick." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member turned to Blake. Morrison didn't wait for orders. He flipped the safety off the Defiance's main railgun battery. "We don't run!" Blake met his gaze, then nodded. "Whelm, hard about!" "All power to forward shields, Morrison. Give them something to remember." The Defiance swung toward the Dominion's fist, engines screaming. Vrax's laughter echoed across the void. "Brave. Stupid, but brave." The Zapirian fleet opened fire, the Dominion's fist looming over New Geneva, its cannons glowing like emerald eyes in the dark, human evacuation shuttles exploding mid-flight, Zapirian fighters weaving through the debris with predatory grace, the Defiance's railgun rounds bouncing harmlessly off Zapirian shields, violet ripples flaring across energy barriers, Captain Blake's face half lit by emergency lights, his reflection glinting in the view screen as plasma fire streaks past, Morrison's hands hovering over the firing controls, his jaw set like iron. The Defiance charges into certain death, but deep in its armored belly, a secret waits to be unleashed. The Defiance shuddered as another Zapirian plasma volley glanced off its armor. Red emergency lights bathed the armory in a bloody glow, casting long shadows behind racks of polished railgun slugs. Chief Engineer Petrovsky wiped grease from her forehead, her fingers dancing across a cracked control panel. "Captain," she said, voice tight, "we need to talk about the package." Captain Blake turned from the damage report. His uniform was singed at the shoulders, the smell of burnt circuitry clinging to him. "Now's not the time for secrets, Chief." Petrovsky grinned. A missing tooth from an old bar fight made her look feral. "Oh, it's exactly the time." She slammed her palm against a hidden panel. The deck plates groaned as a vault door slid open, revealing 3 cylindrical devices pulsing with blue energy. Lieutenant Hayes gasped. "Installed last month while you were planetside getting drunk, sir." Gunnery Chief Morrison pushed forward, his calloused hands hovering near the cores like a priest touching a relic. "This'll make our railguns punch through their shields." Petrovsky snorted. "Punch through! Chief, these turn our slugs into relativistic spears. Their shields won't just fail, they'll shatter." A silence fell. The ship trembled again. Somewhere, a pipe burst, spraying steam. Blake stepped closer. The blue light reflected in his eyes. "Test it." The firing range was a converted cargo bay, its walls scarred from previous weapons tests. A captured Zapirian shield generator hummed in the center, its hexagonal barrier shimmering like oil on water. The crew gathered behind reinforced glass, their breath fogging the viewports. Morrison hefted a railgun slug. It was smaller than his thumb, its surface etched with fractal patterns. "Looks harmless." Petrovsky slapped the loading mechanism shut, "until it's moving at 01 Swan, 111, 1 Douse 1. A sound like a thunderstorm building filled the bay. The air itself seemed to vibrate. The slug left no visible trail, just a crack of displaced air. The shield flared white, then, like glass under a hammer, it fractured. The generator exploded in a shower of molten alloy, embedding shrapnel in the far wall. Hayes' datapad clattered to the floor. "Holy hell!" Petrovsky wiped her hands on her jumpsuit. "Zapirian shields work on frequency modulation. They adapt to energy weapons, but kinetics?" She kicked a smoking generator fragment. "Can't adapt to physics." Blake's calm crackled. "Captain!" 6 more cruisers just warped in, the surrounding New Geneva's debris field. Morrison cracked his knuckles. "Time to show these bugs why humans don't fight fair." Back on the bridge, the crew moved with grim purpose. Hayes recalibrated targeting algorithms, her fingers a blur. Morrison prepped the railgun batteries, humming an old war song. Blake stared at the tactical display. The Zapirian fleet formed a perfect sphere around them, honorable, predictable. "Sir," Hayes said, "their formation, it's textbook." "Oh." No flanking maneuvers, no feints. Blake's lips curled. "They think war has rules." The Defiance's engines roared as Blake gripped the command chair. "Helm, take us straight through their center. Aim for their pride." Morrison chuckled, flipping the arming switches. "With pleasure." Outside, the stars seemed to hold their breath. Then the human warship charged. Visual hooks for next section, the Defiance's railguns glowing blue, Zapirian shields fracturing like ice, Vrax's shot face on the view screen. The bridge of the UESN Defiance hummed with lethal purpose. Red combat lights painted the crew's faces in stark relief, no fear, only focus. Captain Ryan Blake straightened his jacket, the fabric worn from decades of service. The holographic display before him showed the Dominion's fist, its spiked hull bristling with weapons. "Open a channel," Blake said. His voice was calm, deadly. Lieutenant Hayes' fingers danced across her console. "Channel open, sir. They're listening." Blake leaned forward. The view screen flickered to life, revealing General Vrax's snarling muzzle. The Zapirian's 4 eyes narrowed as he took in the human captain. "Surrender now," Vrax hissed, his mandibles clicking. "Your pitiful ship cannot withstand." Blake cut him off. "You made one mistake, General." A pause. The crew held their breath. "You brought a fair fight to humanity." Vrax's exoskeleton flushed purple, confusion, then rage. "Fair? Your shields fail in seconds. Your weapons are exactly where we want them," Blake finished. Behind him, Gunnery Chief Morrison cracked his knuckles. Blake tapped his console. A data stream flooded the channel, Zapirian shield frequencies, engine signatures, weak points. "We don't fight honorably. We fight to win." Vrax's claws dug into his command throne. "This is," Sun Tzu said, "appear weak when you are strong." Blake smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but he forgot the human addendum, then ripped their throats out. On the Dominion's fist, alarms wailed. Vrax whirled as his tactical officer screeched, "General, their weapons!" They're screeched, "General, their weapons!" "Yes!" The view screen split. Jeckie asked. The other half zoomed in on the Defiance's railgun batteries, massive barrels humming with quantum kinetic energy. Blake never blinked. "Shields up! Good!" The railguns charged, the sound a deep tectonic groan. "We prefer a challenge." Vrax's roar was cut off as Blake severed the connection. The bridge lights dimmed. Power surged to the guns. Hayes exhaled. "That was a hell of a speech, sir." Blake settled into his chair. "Wasn't a speech, Lieutenant." The targeting reticule turned green. "Bit was a eulogy." Morrison's laughter was the last thing the Zapirians heard before the Defiance fired. The bridge, low red lighting, holographic tactical displays flickering with enemy ship schematics, crew in standard issue black fatigues, faces set in grim determination. Captain Blake, lean, late 40s, salt and pepper stubble. One hand resting on his command chair, the other hovering over the firing controls. General Vrax, insectoid face contorted in rage, purple exoskeleton flaring with emotion. Behind him, Zapirian crews scrambling at their stations, railguns, massive twin barrels along the Defiance's spine, glowing blue-white as they charge. Energy arcs crackle between them. Final shot, the Defiance's railguns firing, the recoil shaking the camera perspective. The projectiles leave trails of warped space as they streak toward the enemy. The Defiance shuddered as another Zapirian plasma volley glanced off her starboard armor. Warning lights painted the bridge blood red. Captain Blake didn't flinch. "Status," he growled. Lieutenant Hayes' fingers danced across her console. "Shields at 43%. Railguns charged. They're trying to flank us. Classic Dominion envelopment." Blake smirked. "Classic." He tapped his comm. "Morrison, you seeing this?" In the gunnery nest, the chief grinned at the tactical display. 6 Zapirian cruisers forming a kill box. Textbook, predictable. "Like shooting fish in a barrel, Cap," Morrison said, slamming a fresh tungsten slug into the loading chamber. The railgun hummed like a waking dragon. Outside, the void erupted. The Defiance rolled, not with the graceful arcs of alien ships, but with a brutal, mechanical precision. Her thrusters fired in staggered bursts, sending her drifting sideways through a hail of plasma fire. "Evasive pattern. Delta 7, Blake ordered. Hayes blinked. "That's not in the manual." The ship lurched. A Zapirian cruiser overshot, its ventral guns firing uselessly at empty space. Morrison didn't wait for the order. The railgun kicked. A tungsten slug streaked across the black, punching clean through the cruiser's forward shield. The impact sent spiderweb cracks racing across the alien vessel's hull. Then, the cruiser split like rotten fruit, atmosphere venting in a silent scream. On the bridge of the Dominion's fist, General Vrax's claws dug into his command throne. "Impossible!" he roared. "Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields!" His sensor officer trembled. "General, they're projectiles! They're not overloading the shields! They're—" The view screen flared white as another human railgun found its mark. This time, the slug didn't stop at the shields. It tore through them, through 3 decks of armor, and out the other side. Vrax's bridge shook, alarms wailed, but the humans weren't where they should be. The Defiance danced through the battlefield like a ghost. Every maneuver calculated, every shot deliberate. Another cruiser breaking formation, Hayes reported. Blake nodded. "Morrison!" The railgun thundered again. Another Zapirian ship died. "Oncoming fighters!" Whoa! A swarm of Zapirian interceptors streaked toward them, plasma cannons glowing. Blake didn't blink. "Helm! Take us into the asteroid field!" The Defiance pivoted, diving toward the debris of a shattered moon. The Zapirians followed, confident in their speed. Asteroids became weapons. Human fighters, outnumbered 10-1, weaved through the rocks, luring the interceptors into kill zones. Then, with pinpoint accuracy, they fired. Tungsten rounds shattered the floating boulders, sending shrapnel screaming through the void. Zapirian fighters erupted like fireflies in a hurricane. Morrison whooped as the Defiance's guns joined the slaughter. "That's right, you overgrown roaches! Welcome to human space!" Vrax watched in horror as his fleet died. Nothing worked. The humans fought like demons, their tactics chaotic, their weapons unstoppable. Then the Defiance turned toward him. "General," his comms officer shrieked. "The human vessel is—" Vrax saw it! The Defiance, battered but unbroken, locking its remaining railguns on his dreadnought. On the view screen, Captain Blake's face appeared. "Shields up?" Blake asked, smiling. "Good. We prefer a challenge." Vrax had just enough time to scream before the Defiance fired. The Dominion's fist shields fail. Morrison grins. "Right where we want you." The Dominion's fist shuddered as the Defiance's reinforced prow tore through its lower decks. Alarms wailed in discordant screeches, the sound of a dying beast. Sparks rained from shattered conduits, painting the Zapirian bridge in flickering crimson. General Vrax stumbled against his command throne, his 4 claws digging into the armrests. His third eye twitched as he watched the tactical hollow. His fleet was gone. Reduced to spinning wrecks by human weapons that should not have worked. "Seal the bridge!" he roared. The blast doors exploded inward, vaporized by shaped charges. Through the smoke marched 12 figures in black combat armor, no energy shields, no plasma rifles, just solid, brutal kinetics. At their head, Gunnery Chief Jake Morrison cracked his neck. His visor reflected Vrax's quivering mandibles. "Room's a little crowded, General. Mind if we rearrange some furniture?" On the Defiance's bridge, Lieutenant Lisa Hayes watched the boarding feed. Her fingers danced across holographic controls. "Marines have secured the command deck. Minimal casualties." Captain Blake didn't smile. "Not yet." The main view screen showed the aftermath. 23 Zapirian capital ships adrift, their hulls punched through like paper. The Defiance floated among them, her railgun barrels glowing cherry red. "Open a channel to Earth Command," Blake said. A junior officer hesitated. "Sir," word transmitting from their flag bridge now. The alloy was crude, flimsy, yet he couldn't break it. "You," his vocal sacs pulsed with rage, "you cheated." Morrison laughed, slapping the general's carapace. "Nah, we just upgraded." He tapped his earpiece. "Boss, package delivered." Blake's voice crackled through the comms. "General Vrax, welcome to humanity's definition of fair play." The main view screen flickered to life, showing Blake seated in Vrax's command throne. Behind him, human engineers were already stripping the dreadnought systems. "You'll never hold this system," Vrax spat. 20. Blake leaned forward. "Good. Saves us the trip." In the Vorak archives light years away, Ambassador Crix watched the battle footage with mounting dread. The bioluminescent orbs dimmed as if sensing his fear. On screen, the Defiance executed a maneuver no sane species would attempt, a full burn turn through the wreckage of a Zapirian cruiser, using the debris as kinetic shields. His assistant, a young Vorak scholar, chirped nervously. The elder texts warned of this. Their ships move like the storm. Crix finished. His claws traced ancient glyphs on the neutron star alloy scroll. deep grooves marked where human projectiles had struck millennia ago. He activated the emergency beacon. The message would take weeks to reach the High Council, but they needed to know the humans never forgot how to wage war. The galaxy just forgot to fear them. Back aboard the Dominion's Fist, Blake stood at the shattered viewport. Stars glittered beyond, indifferent to the carnage. Hayes joined him, datapad in hand. We'll have their FTL codes within the hour. Morrison's voice boomed over comms. Found their armory. Boss, you gotta see this. They've got enough antimatter warheads to crack a planet. Blake didn't turn. Jake? A pause, then laughter. Hell yeah. The crew exchanged glances. They knew that tone, Earth Command would want a full debrief, but Blake was already 3 steps ahead. On the tactical display, a new set of coordinates glowed. Zapirian Core World Sigma 9. Hayes arched an eyebrow. Sir, that's where they'll regroup. Blake finally smiled. And where we'll be waiting. Outside, the Defiance's railguns hummed as they cycled fresh rounds. The storm wasn't over,